Kieran Voss sat alone in the dim corner of the Lyria Station spaceport, his hands wrapped tightly around a cup of steaming synth coffee. The neon lights outside flickered in rapid patterns, reflecting on the glossy floor and his tired eyes. Once, he had walked these halls as a decorated soldier, proud and confident. Now, he was a shadow of himself, haunted by memories he wished he could erase. The war had ended months ago, but its echoes still rang in his mind. A single mission had destroyed everything he had worked for. His unit, the team he had trained and trusted, was gone. Kieran had survived, but survival came with a cost. A reputation ruined, friends lost, and a burden of guilt he could not shake. Every face in the station seemed to remind him of failure. Every laugh, every cheer, felt like a mirror showing what he could no longer be. He finished his coffee and stood, moving toward the boarding gates. His ticket, small and unremarkable, was a one-way passage to the outer frontier. No one knew exactly what he planned to do there. Perhaps he would vanish entirely, leaving his past behind. Perhaps he would find peace among the uncharted stars, where no one would recognize the broken soldier he had become. As he approached the starship Eclipse Runner, he could hear the hum of engines vibrating through the metal walls. The ship was sleek, a vessel designed for speed and exploration. Kieran liked that. He liked the idea of speed, of leaving things behind so quickly that they could never catch up. He swiped his ticket and stepped onto the docking ramp, feeling the slight tilt of the ship as it prepared to lift off. Inside, the crew moved efficiently, their faces calm, professional. No one spoke to him. He preferred it that way. Conversation would only remind him of the past, of all he had lost. He found a seat by the observation window and sat, letting the stars stretch endlessly beyond the glass. The frontier promised freedom, and Kieran needed freedom more than anything. But freedom, he realized, was a fragile thing. A soft hiss interrupted his thoughts. He looked up, and for a moment, his heart skipped. A woman stood near the observation deck, her figure framed by the starlight. She was tall, her movements controlled, almost feline. Her face was marked by scars that told stories of battles fought and survived. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, fixed on him. "Wrong direction," she said, her voice low and urgent. Kieran frowned. "Excuse me?" he asked, though his voice sounded weaker than he intended. The woman did not smile. She stepped closer, the floor beneath her making no sound. Her presence was commanding, impossible to ignore. "You think you're escaping, soldier? You're not. The frontier isn't a place to hide, it's a place to fight. And if you go that way, you will not survive." Kieran leaned back in his seat, trying to keep his composure. "I'm not looking for a fight. I'm looking for peace." "Peace?" she echoed, the word dripping with skepticism. "There is no peace in the stars. Not for someone like you. Not for someone who runs from what they are." He wanted to argue, to tell her that he had done nothing wrong, that the blame was never truly his. But the words would be hollow. He knew he had made mistakes. He knew the lives of his team weighed heavily on him. And deep down, he knew she was right. Running might bring temporary relief, but it could not erase the past. The woman studied him for a long moment, her sharp eyes never leaving his. Finally, she stepped back, her movements fluid and precise. "You'll see soon enough," she said. Then, as silently as she had appeared, she turned and walked away, leaving Kieran staring at the stars, uncertainty tightening his chest. The Eclipse Runner lifted off the station, the engines roaring to life. Kieran gripped the armrest of his chair as the ship accelerated, leaving the glowing city behind. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, a canvas of infinite possibilities. And yet, the warning echoed in his mind, louder than the engines, louder than the hum of the ship. He tried to focus on the journey, on the sense of freedom that came with moving forward. But the past was relentless. Memories of his team flashed before him, the laughter of his friends during long drills, the shared meals in the barracks, the missions they had completed together. And then the mission that had destroyed everything. Explosions. Screams. Kieran's hands tightened around the seat as guilt clawed at his chest. He had wanted to save them all. He had tried. But in the chaos of battle, decisions had to be made. And the decision he made had condemned his unit. Every day since, he had relived it. Wishing he could turn back time. Wishing he could have done differently. The ship's intercom crackled, breaking his thoughts. All passengers, please prepare for deep space transit. Estimated travel time. 23 hours. The calm voice of the ship's AI felt strangely soothing, a reminder that the universe did not care about guilt or failure. It moved forward, and so must he. Hours passed. Kieran tried to sleep, tried to let the stars become a blur as the ship carried him further from the station, further from his old life. But sleep would not come. His mind kept returning to the warning of the Huntress. Wrong direction. What did it mean? Wrong direction for what? Wrong direction for survival? Or wrong direction for something even deeper, something he had not yet understood? He rose from his seat and moved to the observation deck, drawn by a need to see, to understand. The woman was there again, her silhouette outlined by the cold light of distant suns. She did not speak. She simply watched the stars. Kieran cleared his throat. "You warned me," he said softly. "I don't understand. Why is it wrong?" She turned, her eyes locking on his. There was something in them, fierceness, yes, but also knowledge. "Because," she said slowly, "the frontier tests everything. Courage, skill, morality. Those who run from themselves fail before they even reach the first challenge. You are running, soldier. And the universe does not forgive running." He swallowed hard. Her words cut deep, but they also ignited something in him, a spark, faint but undeniable. For the first time in months, he felt a glimmer of purpose. Perhaps he could not escape the past. Perhaps the frontier would not be easy. But maybe, just maybe, he could face it and find a reason to keep moving. The ship shuddered as it entered a dense asteroid belt. Alarms blared. Kieran instinctively moved to the controls, trained hands reacting faster than his mind. Lyra, the Huntress, moved beside him, her calm demeanor guiding him. Together, they navigated the twisting, tumbling rocks, the ship weaving through danger with precise movements. When they emerged from the belt, Kieran's chest heaved. Adrenaline had replaced guilt for a moment, and he felt alive in a way he hadn't in months. He turned to the woman, the scarred Huntress. I can fight," he said, almost to himself. "I can survive." She studied him silently, then nodded once. A faint smirk touched her lips. "We'll see," she said. "But surviving isn't enough. You must learn to fight for more than yourself." The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, infinite and beautiful, full of danger and possibility. Kieran realized that the frontier was not a place to hide. It was a place to grow, to challenge, to prove that humanity could endure even in the coldest reaches of space. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a measure of hope. The Eclipse Runner continued its journey, carrying a broken soldier and a scarred Huntress into the unknown. The stars held promises of danger, adventure, and redemption. Kieran knew he could not run forever, but perhaps, in the vastness of space, he could find the courage to face himself, and, in doing so, find the strength to make things right. The frontier awaited, and Kieran Voss, haunted but not defeated, would meet it head-on. The Eclipse Runner glided through the void of deep space, the stars outside painting long streaks of light across the observation deck. Kieran Voss could feel the weight of the frontier pressing against him. The warning of Lyra Kale, the scarred huntress, had not left his mind. Wrong direction. Her words had unsettled him, but they had also sparked a strange curiosity. What dangers awaited beyond the known sectors? And why did she seem so certain that he would fail? He turned from the window as Lyra approached. Her movements were silent, precise, and commanding, as if the very floor obeyed her steps. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes scanning the readouts on the ship's console. "You still think running is the answer," she said, her voice low and steady. "I've watched many soldiers try to escape their pasts. Most don't survive the first month out here." Kieran felt a flicker of irritation. "I'm not most soldiers. I can handle myself." "Animate." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Can you? Or are you just hoping no one notices the cracks inside you?" Her words struck him, sharp and cold. He clenched his fists but said nothing. She was right, of course. The soldier he had been was gone, replaced by someone haunted by guilt and loss. But he would not admit weakness, not yet. A sudden jolt shook the ship. Warning lights flashed red, and the hum of the engines rose to a piercing pitch. Kieran grabbed the nearest console, instinct taking over. Lyra's calm voice cut through the alarms. "Rogue asteroid field. Dead ahead. Evasive maneuvers now." Without thinking, Kieran moved to the controls. His hands remembered the drills of countless missions, the precise motions ingrained through years of training. Lyra's presence beside him was like a shadow guiding his actions. She called out adjustments, pointing to asteroids that twisted in unpredictable paths. While Kieran reacted instantly, the ship dipped and swerved, narrowly avoiding collisions with tumbling rocks. For a moment, the past and guilt faded. He was alive. He was useful. And he was needed. When the danger passed, Lyra glanced at him with a mixture of respect and caution. "Not bad," she admitted. "Most would have panicked." Kieran allowed a small nod. "Experience helps." Lyra studied him silently, then finally said. Kieran swallowed hard. He had learned that fear could paralyze a person. But he also knew it could sharpen instincts, drive action, and push one to survive. "I'm not afraid," he said, though the lie sounded hollow even to him. "Good," she said softly. "Then maybe you'll last long enough to learn something." The hours passed slowly as the ship moved deeper into the uncharted sectors. Kieran tried to sleep, but sleep would not come. He kept seeing flashes of the asteroid field, the ship twisting, and Lyra's calm, unshakable presence guiding him through danger. It was a strange feeling. To trust someone so quickly after trusting so few, but her skill and confidence were undeniable. Later, Kieran found himself in the ship's small mess hall. Lyra was already there, examining a star map projected on the table. Her scars caught the soft glow of the projection, making her look both fierce and tired. "You want to know why the frontier is dangerous?" she asked, without looking up. Kieran nodded. "I need to understand. If I'm going this far, I need to know what I'm facing." She finally looked at him, her gaze sharp. "Predators. Not the kind you can shoot or fight with weapons. Predators that hunt using fear, hunger, and death itself. Creatures that can track your mind, your instincts, your weaknesses. They don't care about strength. They care about doubt." Visca. Kieran felt a chill. He had fought humans, machines, and even alien creatures in the past. But this was something different. A test that could pierce the soul. "And you've fought them?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Lyra said, tapping the map. "And I've seen soldiers crumble. Even the strongest ones. You think running kept you safe before? You're only just beginning to see what real danger is." Kieran remained silent. He didn't like being told he was inexperienced, but the fear she spoke of was not imaginary. He could feel it stirring inside him, a shadow lurking where he thought he had none. Over the next few hours, Lyra trained him in ways he hadn't expected. She showed him how to read the subtle signals of danger in space, the shift of asteroid shadows, the faint disturbances in gravity, even the strange patterns in energy readings that suggested something alive was nearby. She forced him to focus not just on reflexes, but on observation, prediction, and reasoning. For Kieran, it was exhausting, but exhilarating. Every correction she made, every warning, was a challenge to rise above his fear and hesitation. For the first time in months, he felt like he was becoming useful again. Like the soldier he had once been, was not entirely gone. Days later, as the Eclipse Runner approached a small, abandoned colony, Lyra finally spoke about why she had been so insistent on his wrong direction. "This colony is near the border of known space," she explained, scanning the map. "Rumors say it houses alien technology devices, powerful enough to shift the balance of humanity in the frontier. But it is also a trap. Megacorporations, scavengers, and worse predators use places like this to test the weak and claim the strong." Kieran's stomach tightened. "And you think I'm weak?" Lyra's eyes softened slightly. "I don't know yet, but I'll find out. And so will the frontier." The ship landed quietly on the dusty surface of the colony. Broken buildings and rusting vehicles stretched across the landscape, the remnants of a civilization that had long since disappeared. Kieran felt a sense of awe and fear. The silence was heavy, almost alive. As they stepped off the ship, Lyra handed him a compact energy rifle. "You'll need this," she said, "and don't forget what I told you. The first predator isn't always visible. Watch the shadows. Watch your mind. Trust nothing but your instincts." Kieran nodded, gripping the weapon. For the first time, the weight of responsibility felt right. He wasn't running from his past here. He was confronting something larger, something that demanded courage, skill, and determination. They moved through the abandoned streets cautiously, every step echoing on the cracked metal and concrete. Strange shapes lurked in the corners of the colony, some moving faster than he could follow, others seeming to vanish into thin air. Kieran realized that Lyra had been right. The frontier did not forgive hesitation. Every step could be a test. Every shadow could be a threat. Hours passed with tension building. Then, they found the first sign of life clones of Kieran's old unit. Not alive, in the sense he remembered, but constructed, modified, and twisted by unknown forces. His heart stopped. These were reminders of his past, but manipulated into something inhuman. Lyra's voice broke through his shock. "This is why running doesn't work. The past catches up to everyone. Soldier. Even you." Kieran raised his weapon, his hands steady despite the surge of fear. He realized that he could no longer hide behind guilt or memory. To survive, he would have to act, to think, and to fight, not for revenge, not for escape, but for humanity, and for the chance to prove that even broken soldiers could rise again. The clones moved with precision, targeting him and Lyra simultaneously. But Kieran's training, combined with Lyra's guidance, allowed them to evade the attacks. He remembered drills from years ago, tactics that had saved lives in real battles, and applied them to the nightmare before him. As the battle continued, Kieran felt a strange clarity. Every movement, every decision, was driven not by fear, but by focus. He was alive. He was capable. And for the first time, he felt that redemption was not impossible, it was within reach. When the clones were finally neutralized, Kieran collapsed against a rusted wall. Exhausted but alive. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. The gesture simple but powerful. "Not bad," she said. "You survived the first test. But the frontier is only getting started. You will face more challenges, and they will be harder. If you want to live and thrive, you must learn to trust yourself completely." Kieran nodded. He was beginning to understand that survival alone was not enough. He had to grow, to adapt, to rise above the shadows of his past and the dangers of the frontier. And with Lyra at his side, he finally felt that he had a chance. The sun of the distant system set, casting a blood-red light across the abandoned colony. Kieran looked out at the horizon, feeling both fear and excitement. The frontier was dangerous, unforgiving, and unpredictable. But it was also a place where humans could shine, where courage, ingenuity, and determination could make all the difference. And Kieran Voss, the soldier who had once fled from his past, was ready to step forward not as a broken man, but as someone learning to fight for something greater than himself. The stars waited, endless and brilliant, full of challenges and wonders alike. And for the first time in a long time, Kieran was not afraid to meet them. The abandoned colony stretched in every direction, silent, but alive with unseen dangers. Kieran Voss had faced the clones of his old unit and survived, but the victory felt hollow. These were not his friends, they were twisted imitations, stripped of memory, designed for control. The realization weighed on him. They had been created by someone else, someone who wanted to use humanity's strength for their own ends. Lyra Kale moved beside him, scanning the horizon. "This is only the beginning," she said. Her voice was calm, but Kieran could feel the tension beneath it. The frontier doesn't forgive hesitation, and neither do the people behind this. Kieran nodded, gripping his energy rifle. He had learned much in the past days: how to move silently, how to anticipate attacks, and how to rely on instincts over hesitation. But nothing could fully prepare him for what lay ahead. As they advanced toward the heart of the colony, the air shimmered with a strange energy. The ground beneath their feet vibrated subtly, almost like the colony itself was alive. Kieran felt a chill run down his spine. "What is this place?" he asked. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "It's an old research station," she explained. "Before the colony fell, scientists worked here to study alien artifacts and technology. Some of it was incredibly advanced, dangerous if misused. That's why the megacorporations and mercenaries are interested. And now, they've left something behind." Kieran glanced at the horizon, where a tall structure rose above the ruins. Its metal surface reflected the dying light of the distant star, and faint sparks ran along its edges. "We need to go inside," he said. "We can't let them, whoever they are, take this technology." Lyra nodded, but her expression was serious. "We go carefully. There will be defenses, automated systems, and possibly predators." The word sent a jolt through him. He had faced danger before, but the frontier tested more than physical skill. It tested the mind. He felt a mixture of fear and determination. He would not run this time. He would face whatever was waiting. As they entered the station, the doors hissed closed behind them. The interior was dark, lit only by the soft glow of emergency lights. Broken machinery and cables hung from the ceilings, creating a maze of obstacles. Kieran moved cautiously, every step deliberate. He felt Lyra's presence beside him like a guide, silent and steady. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, and lights flickered along the walls. Panels on the floor opened, revealing rows of small drones. They were clearly defensive, designed to protect the station. Kieran raised his rifle, ready to act. Lyra moved with him, scanning the drone's patterns. "They move in waves," she whispered. "Wait for the right moment." Kieran watched the drones carefully. Timing was everything. One wrong move could trigger an alarm, and whatever was deeper in the station would be alerted. He counted silently, then moved with precision, taking down each drone as it approached. Lyra covered him, neutralizing threats before they could react. When the last drone fell, the silence returned. Kieran exhaled, feeling both relief and exhaustion. "This is intense," he muttered. Lyra smirked. "Welcome to the frontier." Nothing worth protecting is ever easy to reach. They continued deeper into the station. As they moved, Kieran noticed strange symbols etched into the walls, glowing faintly. "What are these?" he asked. "Alien markings," Lyra replied. "They're part of the technology the scientists studied. Some of it is communication, some is power control. But most of it, we don't fully understand." Kieran felt a sense of awe. Humanity had ventured far, even here, at the edge of known space. Yet he also felt the weight of responsibility. If the wrong people controlled this technology, it could mean disaster for the frontier, and perhaps even for humanity itself. As they approached the central chamber, the air grew heavy with energy. Sparks danced along the walls, and the temperature seemed to shift unpredictably. Kieran's senses were on high alert. Then, the source became clear clones. Dozens of them lined the chamber. But these were not like the ones outside. They were enhanced, faster, stronger. Their eyes glowing faintly, they turned in unison toward Kieran and Lyra, moving with mechanical precision. Kieran raised his rifle, but Lyra shook her head. "Not just weapons," she said. "We need strategy. Not..." The clones advanced, and Kieran realized they were connected to the station itself. The moment one clone moved, doors and defenses shifted, creating obstacles and traps. It was as if the station and the clones were a single entity, testing intruders at every step. Kieran's mind raced. He had faced soldiers before, but this required more than reflexes, it required ingenuity. He scanned the chamber, noting weak points in the energy panels and exposed wiring. He whispered to Lyra, "If we can overload the main panel, it might disrupt their coordination." Will G. Company willed. Will G. And Will G. Will G. And Will G. And Will G. Will G. And 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 Lyra nodded. "Then let's do it." They moved carefully, dodging the clones' attacks while positioning themselves near the control panels. Kieran's hands worked quickly, rewiring circuits and redirecting power. Sparks flew, and the clones' coordination faltered. One by one, they paused, then collapsed as the station's systems failed to guide them. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Kieran's heart pounded in his chest. He had survived. Yes. But this was only the first step. Lyra moved to a console and accessed the station's database. "There's more here than just weapons," she said, scrolling through the files. "Energy sources, alien artifacts, knowledge that could change the balance of power in the frontier." Kieran looked at her, a sense of purpose rising within him. He had fled from guilt and failure. But now, he understood something vital. Humanity had the ability to rise, to innovate, to survive, and he had a role to play. He could not run anymore. As they explored further, a sudden alarm blared. Red lights flashed, and a deep, resonant hum shook the chamber. Kieran felt a wave of dread. From the shadows emerged something massive, its shape difficult to define. It moved with intent, and Kieran realized it was alive. Not human, not machine, but something in between. An alien predator created or awakened by the station. Lyra moved quickly. "Stay calm," she said. Kieran nodded, taking a deep breath. He had learned to control fear, to rely on observation, and to act with precision. The predator lunged, its movements unpredictable, but not random. Kieran dodged, using the environment to his advantage. He fired his rifle, but the blasts only grazed its tough exterior. Lyra attacked simultaneously, using energy pulses to distract it. They moved as a unit, anticipating each other's actions, pushing the predator back. Step by step, Kieran felt exhilaration and fear mixed together. For the first time, he realized that facing danger was not just about survival. It was about proving humanity's strength, creativity, and courage. Hours passed in this tense battle. Kieran and Lyra adapted constantly, using the station's systems, the environment, and their own ingenuity to counter the predator. Finally, with a coordinated strike, they overloaded a nearby energy conduit, stunning the creature long enough to escape. Breathing heavily, Kieran leaned against a wall. "We did it," he said, almost in disbelief. Lyra gave a rare smile. "Not just survived. You adapted. That's what matters. That's what the frontier tests. Not strength, not courage alone, but the ability to think, to invent, to overcome." Kieran nodded, feeling a strange pride. He had faced shadows both in himself and in the universe, and had survived. The frontier was still dangerous, but he was beginning to understand humanity's potential. Even in the face of unimaginable threats, humans could rise, adapt, and prevail. As they left the station, the distant stars shone brilliantly, casting light on the two figures standing together. Kieran felt a sense of resolve. He had fled in the past, but now he faced the future with purpose. The frontier would not break him. Humanity would not be broken. And as the Eclipse runner lifted off into the void once more, Kieran Voss knew that the journey was far from over. Challenges awaited, greater than he could imagine. But he would meet them head-on, not as a broken soldier, but as a representative of human resilience, courage, and ingenuity. The stars stretched endlessly before them. A universe of danger, opportunity, and wonder. And for the first time in a long time, Kieran did not feel fear. He felt determination. Humanity had survived, adapted, and thrived before, and he would ensure that it did so again. The frontier waited, and Kieran Voss, with Lyra Kale at his side, was ready to face it. The Eclipse runner soared through the dark void, leaving the ruined research station behind. Kieran Voss leaned against the observation deck, staring at the endless stars. The distant nebulae and scattered suns reminded him of just how small he was, and yet, how much humans could achieve. He had come to the frontier running from guilt and fear, but now he felt something he had not, in months, purpose. Lyra Kale joined him, her steps silent as always. She studied the stars for a long moment before speaking. "The frontier is full of challenges, Kieran. Every system has its tests, every planet its dangers. Most would run, most would fail. But you," she paused, letting her words hang, "you've shown you can rise above fear. That's rare." Two. Kieran met her gaze, unsure if he deserved the praise. "I'm not sure I've earned it," he admitted quietly. "I'm still broken. My. Lyra's gaze softened, though the sharpness never fully left her eyes. Broken doesn't mean useless. It means you've survived what others could not. You've learned. That is more valuable than any victory." Without struggle, he nodded, feeling the weight of her words. She was right. Survival alone was not enough. Humanity had survived because it adapted, because it fought, because it refused to bow to fear. And he was learning to do the same, not just for himself, but for everyone who would come after him. Their respite was short. The ship's sensors began to flare red, indicating movement in nearby space. Kieran moved to the controls, scanning the readings. "It's a fleet," he said, his voice tight, small, fast. "And they're coming toward us." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Mercenaries. They want the technology we found. They don't care who gets in the way." Kieran's stomach tightened. He had faced clones, rogue systems, and alien predators, but a fleet was something different. Numbers, strategy, and coordination worked in their favor. But humans could outthink them, outmaneuver them, and survive against impossible odds. He took a deep breath. Then we outthink them. We don't run. We fight. Smart. Lyra smiled faintly, a rare sign of approval. Finally. That's the right way. The Eclipse runner dropped out of hyperspace near a dense asteroid field. Kieran guided the ship through the jagged rocks, using the environment to hide from the fleet's sensors. Lyra coordinated their defensive systems, optimizing shields and energy distribution to keep them mobile. The first wave of enemy ships passed, without detecting them. Kieran allowed himself a small measure of satisfaction. They were alive, and the fight had not yet begun. Hours passed in tense silence as the fleet searched the field. Kieran and Lyra moved with precision, weaving through the rocks, using asteroid shadows and debris to mask their movements. Every decision mattered. One wrong move could mean destruction. Finally, Kieran found a chance. There, he said, pointing to a narrow gap between two massive asteroids. If we slip through there, we can force their lead ships to break formation. It'll give us an advantage. Lyra nodded. Do it. I'll handle the rest. With careful adjustments, Kieran piloted the ship through the tight passage. The enemy fleet faltered as they followed, colliding with debris and losing coordination. Kieran felt adrenaline surge through him. Humanity had survived worse situations than this. Their ingenuity, teamwork, and determination were unmatched even in the void of space. As the fleet regrouped, Kieran and Lyra prepared their counterattack. Using the station's technology they had recovered, Lyra enhanced the ship's energy pulses to disable enemy shields without destroying the ships. Kieran's hands flew over the controls, guiding the ship through evasive maneuvers, while Lyra directed the energy pulses. One by one, enemy ships were rendered immobile, unable to continue the attack. Kieran felt a sense of exhilaration he had not experienced in years. This was not just survival. This was victory achieved through skill, intelligence, and courage, the very traits that defined humanity. When the last enemy ship floated harmlessly in space, Lyra leaned back in her seat. You did well, she said. Not many would have thought of using the environment and technology together like that. Kieran exhaled, allowing himself to smile. We did it together, he corrected. Lyra smirked. I suppose that counts. The stars ahead glimmered, distant suns painting the darkness with color. Kieran felt a sense of peace. He had confronted his past, faced threats both human and alien, and survived against impossible odds. But more importantly, he had learned something essential about humanity. No matter the fear, no matter the danger, humans could rise. They could innovate, adapt, and protect what mattered most. And he, Kieran Voss, would be part of that effort. Where to next? He asked, his voice steady. Lyra glanced at the map, marking unexplored sectors. There's a system with signs of alien technology, she said. It's unclaimed, dangerous, but promising. If humans can establish a foothold there, it could shift the balance of power in the frontier. Kieran nodded. Then we go. No running, no hiding, just forward. As the Eclipse runner accelerated toward the new system, Kieran reflected on the journey he had undertaken. He had started this mission trying to flee from himself, from his mistakes, and from the guilt that weighed him down. But now he understood that running would never bring peace. Action, courage, and human ingenuity were the keys to survival and redemption. Lyra watched him quietly. You've changed, she said softly. Kieran turned to her. I've learned, he admitted. We've both learned. The ship emerged from hyperspace into the new system, revealing a breathtaking view. Planets glowed in shades of blue and green. Massive moons orbited silently, and distant nebulae painted the sky in vivid colors. It was a reminder that the universe was vast, full of challenges and wonders alike, and humanity had the ability to reach it. Kieran felt a sense of awe, but also responsibility. The frontier was not just a place for exploration, it was a proving ground. Every decision, Every action could determine the fate of those who followed, and he would ensure that humanity thrived, not just survived. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, a rare gesture of camaraderie. "Ready?" she asked. Kieran nodded, gripping the controls. Always. Together, they guided the Eclipse Runner toward the unknown, a symbol of human courage and determination. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of danger, mystery, and opportunity. The frontier was vast, and the challenges would never end. But humanity, resilient and resourceful, would endure. As the ship moved into uncharted space, Kieran realized that his past no longer defined him. The mistakes, the guilt, and the loss were still part of him, but they were no longer chains. They were lessons. And he would use them to become stronger, smarter, and braver. The universe was a test, and humanity was rising to meet it. For the first time in years, Kieran Voss felt truly free. Not because he had escaped, but because he had confronted everything he feared and survived. Humanity, in all its flawed, determined glory, had triumphed once again. Lyra smirked and hissed playfully. "Still heading the wrong way, soldier. But maybe you're learning the right way after all." Kieran laughed softly. The stars stretched ahead, endless and bright. And Kieran Voss, scarred, determined, and unbroken, piloted the Eclipse Runner into the unknown, carrying humanity's courage and ingenuity with him. The frontier awaited, full of dangers, wonders, and new challenges. And humanity, through the determination of people like Kieran and Lyra, would continue to rise undaunted, inventive, and unstoppable. The broken soldier had found his purpose, the frontier had found its defender, and the stars, infinite and unforgiving, would bear witness to humanity's strength